Hi, this is Morley, and this is the M-Wire. Folks, things are building up in Russia, as you can see from the video here. Russia is moving more troops into position. It seems the more that NATO and the EU and the United States ask him to stand down from this military exercise, as he deems it, the more troops and more equipment he seems to get into position. But before I get into this video, a big shout out to my new subscribers. If you haven't already subscribed, please get M-Wired, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you will be instantly notified whenever I put out new content. Now, as far as this Russian buildup goes, folks, I don't think Vladimir Putin is backing down here. I really don't. I mean, he is anything but stupid. Regardless of what your opinion of him is personally, he's not a stupid man. That is absolutely and positively for sure. He's doing this very methodically, very strategically, and most importantly, he does not seem to be backing down. I don't think we're going to see what we saw in the spring, where he just gets some troops into place and then does nothing with them. Rumors are starting to abound that he's going to attack Ukraine in January. Now, whether that's true or not, time will tell. I mean, you might think from a military strategic standpoint, why would you tell your enemy when you're going to attack? I mean, that's part of Russia's swagger, in my opinion. They know that their military far exceeds that of Ukraine, so they almost are bragging about when they're going to attack. Because I guarantee you that they will attack before the Ukraine can officially join NATO. Because NATO is the only thing that's standing in the way of basically Vladimir Putin and the Russians taking over Ukraine. I don't think even NATO forces, if they got involved, would cause much of a deterrence for Vladimir Putin to take over the Ukraine if he was so inclined to do so. Russia's military is way too strong. I mean, they have hypersonic weapons. Not that I'm saying that this thing will instantly go nuclear. I can't see that happening. At least I pray that doesn't happen. But I mean, as far as a ground assault is concerned, Russia has all the cards in their favor. They could take over the Ukraine quite easily. Now I'm going to get into this quick article from the New York Times. Basically, it talks about like where everything's at and where the United States is at. And that's a very gray area because no one really seems to know, as you'll see from this article. U.S. warns allies of possible Russian incursion as troops amass near Ukraine. Western intelligence officials are increasingly convinced that the Russian president wants to take control of a larger swath of territory. That part I agree with. I think Vladimir Putin kind of misses the old days of the Cold War Russia, if you will, and he wants to basically rebuild the former Soviet Union, in my opinion. I have no idea what's actually going through his mind, obviously, but from what I've seen from his actions, that's precisely what I think he wants to do. American intelligence officials are warning allies that there is a short window of time to prevent Russia from taking military action in Ukraine, pushing European countries to work with the United States to develop a package of economic and military measures to deter Moscow, according to American and European officials. Russia has not yet decided what it intends to do with the troops it has amassed near Ukraine, American officials said, but the buildup is being taken seriously, and the United States is not assuming it is a bluff. As I've said before, folks, I highly doubt that the United States will get directly involved in this. I mean, they've been sending ammunition and aid and stuff to Ukraine and whatnot, but I think that's as far as they'll go. I don't think, with the weak leadership that we have in this country currently, I don't think they will do anything physically to deter this invasion. Just my opinion, but hey, we'll see. Avril D. Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, traveled to Brussels this week to brief NATO ambassadors about American intelligence on the situation and a possible Russian military intervention in Ukraine. Mrs. Haynes' trip was long planned and covered a variety of issues, but the growing concerns over Russia were among the short-term threats discussed, according to officials briefed on them. The United States has also been sharing intelligence with Ukraine, and on Friday, General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, spoke with the Lieutenant General Valery Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief in Ukraine's military, to discuss Russia's concerning activity in the area, the Joint Chief said in a statement. American and British intelligence are increasingly convinced that the President Vladimir Putin of Russia is considering military action to take control over a larger swath of Ukraine to destabilize the country enough to usher in a more pro-Moscow government. American and Allied officials sounded an alarm in April as Moscow built up forces near its border with Ukraine. But the current buildup, which appears to involve more troops and sophisticated weaponry, has engendered more concerns, particularly as Russia has moved to jam Ukrainian surveillance drones. Hostilities have also spiked since Ukraine used one of its drones to attack a separatist howitzer, prompting Russia to scramble jets. So there has been, fighting here and there, small skirmishes, not full-scale war. That's been going on for a while. That's nothing new. But, we're talking about a full-blown attack here. Like, we're talking about rolling 100,000 troops plus equipment over the Ukrainian border, which would initiate a full-on war. There's no conjecture there. It's not inevitable that there's going to be an increase in kinetic conflict, but all the pieces are in place, said Frederick B. Hodges, the former top U.S. Army commander in Europe, now at the Center for European Policy Analysis. If we, the West, look like we are not cohesive and ready to work together, then the risk of the Kremlin making a terrible miscalculation goes up. American intelligence officials have told allies that Mr. Putin has grown frustrated with the peace process set up by France and Germany in 2014 after Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula and engineered a separatist rebellion in eastern Ukraine. Some former officials say Mr. Putin could be intent on securing a land route between eastern Ukraine and Crimea. And American analysts believe Mr. Putin sees the next few months as a unique moment to act. With Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany leaving the world stage, there is less pressure on Ukraine to make concessions. Without a coalition in Germany, there is little leadership in Berlin. Rising energy prices have made Europe more dependent on cheap Russian gas supplies, especially as winter deepens and gas reserves in Europe drop further. Fear of losing access to Russian energy could limit Europe's support of tough sanctions. Oh, Putin's definitely going to play with the gas, folks. There's no way he's not going to play with the gas as far as this is concerned. He knows the leverage he has with it, and he won't be afraid to use it if push comes to shove. And with rising energy prices, limited supplies, Russia has more money to pay for military operations, according to current and former officials. American officials want to create a common prescription of actions the United States and Europe would take should Russia move against Ukraine militarily. While there are parts of Russia's economy that have not been subjected to sanctions, the United States will need to build support in Europe for new measures to be effective. On Thursday, as Mrs. Haynes was leaving Brussels, the Senate confirmed Julianne Smith to become the next U.S. ambassador to NATO. Her nomination has been held up for months by Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, complicating American efforts to form a united response to the growing threat to Ukraine. At NATO, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has offered his own warnings about Russia, speaking in Berlin on Friday. Mr. Stoltenberg described the large and unusual concentration of Russian forces on Ukraine's border. It is urgent that Russia shows transparency about its military buildup, de-escalate, and reduce tensions, he said. Well, it appears that Mr. Putin has no intentions of doing that whatsoever, because he's doing the diametric opposite, folks. The footage that I showed you in the beginning of the video was recent as of a couple days ago. So at this time, he is only building up, not decreasing, the military on the Russia-Ukraine border. He, I think, is getting poised for an attack, maybe in the wintertime, we'll see. But this situation is escalating, and quite frankly, this is a very underreported story, which is why I'm reporting on it now. But thank you so much for coming along with me to my update. Please remember to like, to comment, to share, and of course to subscribe. Until the next update, God bless.